Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Potato Pals Perspective here on the PFC Entertainment Network, along with the incomparable Pope Brandon Brownson. I am Jason Clouse. We certainly appreciate you tuning in this week. This is going to be a very fast turnaround, Pope. We are literally recording this, I don't know, about 7 hours before this thing drops, a little bit longer than that, maybe 8 hours. So the turnaround is going to be very fast on this, but we've got a lot of shit to talk about this week, brother. But before we do, how we doing?
Oh, I'm fantastic. I got the montage music playing in my head. I'm hopped up on Mountain Dew, and what is that? My father's here to visit. My impression of my dad, ladies and gentlemen. One day my dad's going to listen to this show, and he's going to go, Brandon, what the fuck? And I'm just going to point and laugh.
Well, Dad, you've now become a consistent and running tagline here on the show. So love that for you. We're coming off it was a big weekend last weekend for all of us here at the PFC Entertainment Network. One that I personally enjoyed, personally and professionally. But once we got into the actual work week, a lot of news came down the wire on Tuesday that affects you and I, Pope, as wrestling fans. We talked about this yesterday on the hot tag with Sean Grugel. We are going to talk more about it later tonight on the Clouse and Q show live on Facebook Live through ONTV. There's just so much to start with here. Let's go back to last weekend real quick. You and I had an opportunity to see each other face to face for the first time in way too long, and that really was one of the many highlights I took away from last Saturday. Having been a part of the PFC Entertainment Network party, it was the first one that I've done on that level, and the stage show that followed it. What was your takeaway from Saturday night? I'm just curious.
First of all, it was fantastic leaving the house for the one time I shall do so this fiscal quarter. The black suit men did not pick me up this time, so I would say it was a rousing success. Suck it, FIBs. You can't get me. No, it was just fantastic to be able to finally interact with, some of the other people who've been on the network for a while. It was obviously fantastic getting to see you, getting to see Levi after, God, I don't know, it's been even longer since I've seen Levi since I've last seen you.
Yeah.
Because, we would have been around like 3.5 years ago. Levi, I haven't seen him since the last time I bumped into him at a show.
Mm-hmm.
No, it was just lovely getting to not be home. It was great getting to see you in your element. Getting to throw dollar bills at you to cover for the fact that the microphone shit out was fantastic.
That was a laugh-inducing moment for sure. Yeah.
To give a little context to the viewer at home, so Bash takes off his suit jacket while he's in the middle of his speech, and you have never seen someone reach for their wallet so quickly. I'm pulling out a fistful of singles, hoping I can get up in time, and then you start talking, and I'm like, well, fuck, that moment's gone. And then the microphone dies, and I realize this is the perfect moment. This is an awkward situation. I imagine that Bash is extremely frustrated with what has just transpired. Time to make him laugh, folks.
And he did. It was, but it wasn't, because doing a presentation like that, there's a lot involved, and I'm not discounting that, but it's nothing compared to what I had been used to in producing a professional wrestling show, because there's just so many moving parts with that.
Oh, yeah.
Doing something like the stage show, like I said, there's a lot that goes into it, but the logistics of it is nowhere near as involved. So yeah, the microphone went down, which was really weird to me. Because
Yeah.
it's not like I mic dropped it. It's not like I set it down on the table to take my jacket off because I was getting hot. The lights were beating on me or whatever.
You know,
And then when I picked it back up, there was nothing. And I was like, well, what the fuck is this all about? But luckily, two things. One, the venue wasn't incredibly big. And two, my voice carries. So we were able to improvise. But the dollar bill thing, uh, what could have been one of those moments where I could have gone off the rails. That right there, because it was such a laugh-inducing moment, it put everything back in perspective. So I wasn't mad about it, and it did garner quite a few chuckles. And I was glad to see you out of the house. I was glad that you had the opportunity to put faces to the names of those that work for the network. And
mhm.
I mentioned it earlier this week on the flagship show. Like I took a moment, actually a couple of them, and just kind of stood back and watched and listened. And I said it then, I'll say it here. That was the first time I felt legitimate happiness in a long, long time on any level, really. But it was just so heartwarming to me to see these people from all walks of life all converged in one spot for the first time and to see the interaction. And they just like, man, I have assembled truly a family here. And that's kind of what took me off on my sidebar on the flagship show. But I was so happy that you were there and that you were a part of that because you're just as important part of this network as anybody is. So uh, I loved it, man, and it solidifies to me I got to do more shit like this throughout the year, not make this just a once a year thing.
Mhm.
Find different field trips, find different events that we can do where we can put real life to the side for a day or two or what have you and just enjoy each other's company. So I came away from it very, very happy. So, and that's been a long time since I've left a live event environment. Be like, I mean, aside from the microphone going out, but we improvised. Like this was a damn good day.
Good, good, man. I'm happy to hear that.
All right. I mean, we got a number of things to run down. I'm curious to get your take on this. I got Sean's earlier. Like I said, we talked about this yesterday on the hot tag.
Hmm.
We hadn't planned on it, but man, Pope, when there's so much news that comes down and affects us as professional wrestling fans, and I know this is not primarily a wrestling show, but we've made no bones about the fact wrestling's a big damn deal in our lives. So when
Hmm.
things like this happen, we have to talk about it. Number one,
Right.
I'd like to get your opinion, and the listeners want to get your opinion because I feel like, especially with this first course, or this first news article that we're going to dive into, this is in your wheelhouse. So I feel like this is going to be a very interesting conversation. Of course, I'm talking about the big news that WWE has come to a 10-year agreement deal with Netflix that's going to send Monday Night Raw to this streaming giant. And in a lot of ways, Netflix kind of is the trailblazer for content like this, for streaming services like this. Now, when there was first rumblings um, that WWE was shopping for a new home for Monday Night Raw, Amazon became a front runner. And I said then, man, moving Monday Night Raw to a streaming service is a huge mistake. And a part of my feelings on that was Monday Night Raw has become a television institution. Whether you agree with wrestling, whether you like wrestling or not, you cannot deny the fact that statistically, Raw is, without a shadow of a doubt, the longest running episodic show in television history. It's just what it is. And to take it off your normal cable systems or your network television or what have you is huge. And I was vehemently against it. Big mistake. Don't do it. Find a new cable home. It's obviously not going to Fox. It's not going to go to NBC or anything like that. So what are we going to do? And then once the deal came down, and I had a conversation with Brian Balfe about this. You'll see him tomorrow night on the Clouse and Q show, or later tonight. Actually, I should say as this drops, because my biggest concern, Pope, was if they move to Netflix, there goes live programming. And nobody is going to watch a pre-taped Raw, or you know what I'm saying. If it's not live, it loses that appeal to it. But then I'm learning that Netflix is actually going above and beyond to try to get all the kinks worked out. They're doing more live concerts, more live comedy shows, this type of thing. So by the time Raw comes on to their service, their platform next January, theoretically, they'll have all the kinks worked out. What is your opinion, your initial opinion of Monday Night Raw moving to Netflix?
Right out of the gate, I am a little surprised that it is Netflix that wound up getting the deal, solely because there are several other streaming platforms that already have that infrastructure in space, or in place, rather. Like, I can't list off specifically what's on what, but I know that there's several streaming services out there where you can just watch the sports ball as it's sportsing. Netflix having no prior toes dipped into that pool, I guess it's a little surprising to me that it's them. But at the same token, I've been watching the downward slide that Netflix has been on for the past several years. They're probably looking for that next cash cow, that next Friends or Breaking Bad, or the next show that everyone's obsessed with. And since it's looking like it's probably not going to come internally, WWE makes sense. As far as them switching over to streaming, I'm a little surprised to see Raw going exclusively to Netflix. But it makes sense to me. You know, more and more people are getting rid of cable altogether in favor of, a handful of streaming services instead. So it definitely makes sense to me. Pro wrestling's always been on the cutting edge of technology. If anything, it's surprising to me that it's taken this long for that experiment to happen. We've been seeing it on the indies for years and years and years with like High Spots and the Independent Wrestling Network, and I know there's a couple other ones out there. There's several companies out there that have their own streaming services. WWE Network kind of got that ball rolling. Side note, no matter what ends up happening with WWE and streaming, I miss the fucking network, man. The network was great, but that's a whole other sidebar. Really what it boils down to is going to be, can Netflix get their heads out of their ass for long enough to figure this out? And conventional wisdom says, yeah, they've got enough money to figure that out. Conventional wisdom hasn't exactly been dictating what's been going on with streaming services lately. I have about as much faith in any streaming service to get something done as I do my next door neighbor. Oh. I have two of those. The one that I can't rely on, I should specify. So we'll see what happens. Either way, the Fed's about to get a fuckload of money out of it. So I doubt that Triple H is worrying about much else other than how many zeros are at the end of that contract.
This is a 10-year deal worth $5 billion.
Mm-hmm.
That's $500,000 a year for Monday Night Raw. One show, Monday Night Raw.
Oh yeah.
Now, you mentioned the WWE Network and what was really at the forefront of this shift towards streaming, because once they launched that in 2014 and they said you're getting all the pay-per-views, you're getting all the archives, you're getting all the shows, not just from WWE, but like their entire library, and they've got a shit ton of it. WCW, ECW, a lot of the older territories, Mid-South, and things of this nature, Dallas. WWE Network at this point is still a thing. The problem is it's only available to international markets. Now, with the Netflix deal, that has more or less solidified the fact that WWE Network is no longer going to be a thing. Because while we have Peacock here in the States, and Peacock is still going to be a thing, because if you recall, SmackDown has already been announced. It's coming back to the USA Network. And with that deal, they are going to get 4 quarterly primetime specials on NBC, the broadcast station. Okay. Now, with this keeps pay-per-views for us here in the United States on Peacock for the foreseeable future. International markets, the United Kingdom and the Middle East and France and all these other countries, they're getting their shit through Netflix. Now, you mentioned Triple H here a little bit ago, and obviously he is going to have his finger on the pulse on this, being where he's at in the company. Not just the head of creative, but like this guy is almost, behind the scenes. He is your go-to guy of anything WWE. The other part of the big story this week was The Rock becoming appointed to the board of directors for TKO Holdings, which is the parent company of both WWE and UFC. The Rock is now a decision maker for this company. Now you put him and you put Triple H side by side, and my initial concerns with this merger just went out the window, because my concern was they were going to merge the two companies and they were going to put some shithead in there that has no idea about the wrestling business, and they were going to drive WWE into the ground. With The Rock's appointment to the board of directors and Triple H being involved here, and I said it yesterday, I'll say it here today, and I'll probably say it several more times. The future has never been more bright for World Wrestling Entertainment. That's part 1. Part 2, if I'm Tony Khan, if I'm All Elite Wrestling, I am shitting my pants right now. Because here's the thing with them. Their contract with Turner Network is coming up. They are desperately trying to find a new home, and Time Warner, which now has a stake in AEW, is kind of, I'm not saying withdrawing their interest, but the interest that was once there, by all reports that I have read, because when you came on the air here, or when you came on the call, that's what I was looking at. I'd like to try to do my homework. Time Warner is kind of starting to distance themselves from AEW. And it's causing a degree of panic in Jacksonville, because AEW, if they don't renew this deal with Turner, they're in deep, deep shit in terms of their future and getting their content out to their masses. Very interesting, though, the business behind the business. You know what I'm saying? What's your take on that?
It would be foolish for Turner to drop AEW. AEW is the most stable thing that they've got going on right now. the House of Turner is on fire. Even if AEW weren't where they were at upon launch, they're still in a much better position than almost anything else that they've got going right now. However, we've seen the history of the Turner Network and professional wrestling, and they clearly have not gotten their house in order since then.
Right.
So I'm not going to hold my breath that everything is going to work out for AEW. I know better than that. Anytime I put my undivided faith into something, it blows up in my face. I don't trust like that anymore, especially when corporations are involved. I'm going to hope that AEW stick around, because if AEW collapse, I will just go back to not watching professional wrestling. I'm going to need to see a sustained commitment to change and the product shifting for me to come back to WWE as a fan. I was able to finally figure out the big difference between WWE and AEW in like the fundamental booking of the storylines. At least in my opinion, this is like the big thing. With WWE, you've got the main storyline, right? Like Roman Reigns, by and large, been the main storyline.
Sure.
And the main storyline appears all throughout the show. It'll get several segments throughout the show. You'll get, replays to what's previously happened, what happened earlier in the evening, hype up for what's coming later with the main story, right? If you are not invested in the main story, you are not going to enjoy the show by and large, because it keeps cycling back to that. AEW are much more of a variety show. Once the segment's over, it's over for the week. If you don't like the trapeze artist, don't worry. The guy's coming out with a line in a little bit, and he's gonna stick his head in the fucker's mouth. You don't like that? That's fine. We're gonna shoot a guy out of a cannon later. Unfortunately, some of these things probably have actually appeared on All Elite Wrestling television, but I digress. There's something, it's the perfect wrestling product for someone with ADHD, which I have.
I have never heard it like that. And you're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. That is...
don't get me wrong, there are storylines. They do go on from week to week. Some of my favorite stories to happen in wrestling over the past decade have happened in AEW. Say what you will about CM Punk, but his program with MJF was, in my opinion, probably like the best thing I've seen in wrestling in like a decade. But they don't... I could maybe find a softer way of putting this, but they don't beat you over the head with stuff like I find WWE do. Like, I can't watch the product without being reminded that Roman Reigns exists every 20 minutes. I get it. He's got both belts. I know he's there. I know he's going to be a huge part of the programming, but like, bro, what the fuck is Cedric Alexander doing? You've got all these other people, and like, so much focus is going on this like core group of the main thing that it just... I'd like to see some of that shine get put on some other people. As much as I hate to say this, what Vince Russo is really good at? Making sure everyone had something to do.
You're right.
Usually it was silly, nonsensical bullshit that made the industry look bad, but at least they were doing something. Vince Russo would have gave Cedric fucking Alexander something to do. He would have probably been fucking a chicken, but it's something. Please, someone gave Cedric Alexander a gonzo gimmick. Now that I've said it, I'm in love with it. Give him the nose anyway.
Vince Russo is one of the most polarizing figures in the history of wrestling. That's just what he is. And I took a lot of inspiration from Vince Russo during not how I booked MWO, but back in the day, I used to write a newsletter for the MWO.
Mm-hmm.
And then once the internet became a thing and we had our own website, well, the whole Wildman Williams gimmick was based on, or inspired, I guess I should say, by Vince Russo. And I have a great appreciation for Vince Russo. I'm also very annoyed by the guy at the same time, but there is respect there. I do respect Vince Russo. I do. Not a lot of people do, and I understand why, but I do. I saw what he brought to the business and the time that he was here. Now, I don't subscribe to his Realm Network or anything like that, and I probably should because I am generally interested. I don't know. He's got one of those presentations I'm captivated by. He may piss me off, but I'm engaged. Part of that is it's his voice, bro. He's got that very thick New York accent, and I'm entertained by it. But you are absolutely right. He made sure that everybody was doing something, as goofy as it may have been. And I can see your point of view, and I can appreciate your point of view. AEW, its presentation is a stark contrast to what WWE is doing. Now, shifting gears, I mentioned here a moment ago, The Rock is now part of the decision making for the parent company that owns WWE. This is huge because this is the guy that anything that he touches at this point turns to gold. He merged two professional football leagues into one. Every movie that he's in goes straight to the top of the box office. He's the highest paid actor in Hollywood. Anything this guy does is a success. Having laid all that out and thinking about his very first WWF appearance as Rocky Maivia at the 1996 Survivor Series, and you hear Jim Ross, well, that's a blue chipper. That's going to be the man right there. Little did we know all these years later just how much of the man Dwayne Johnson was going to become. Do you see this as a bonus or a hindrance moving forward for WWE?
It would depend on how Dwayne is utilized. When it comes to branding and marketing, there is no doubt that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson knows what the fuck he is doing. Arguably better than anyone else in the game right now. That motherfucker hustles like a carny, and he makes fat carny stacks. So if that is primarily what his role is, and I believe that is the best role for him, let him handle the branding, let him handle the marketing, most importantly, let him be the public face of the company. And this is a net positive. If he begins to dabble with the booking, if that is more of the avenue that he's going to go in, I have no fucking idea, man. I've never seen The Rock as a booker before. So if that is the avenue in which he's getting involved, to be decided. Could be dope, could suck ass. But if it is strictly in like a more business setting, net positive, and that I don't find any way to argue with that.
It's going to be very interesting to see how this whole thing unfolds, for sure. And a lot of focus right now is on the Royal Rumble this weekend. This is the kickoff to the road to WrestleMania. And between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, we have a little stopover in Perth, Australia for the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. There is a lot of speculation. There is a lot of fantasy booking, as it were. And right now, with his comments, there's two guys that have made public comments that really could shift the dynamic, not just the Royal Rumble itself, but moving forward towards Philadelphia for WrestleMania 40. Obviously, one is The Rock, because there's a lot of speculation that it's going to be he and Roman Reigns. There's been a lot of teases back and forth, either online or during, like The Rock was on ESPN, and they point blank asked him, "Are you going to be at WrestleMania to face Roman Reigns?" And his answer is, "There's a good chance." So it makes you wonder, is that what they're going towards Philadelphia, or are they going to use that match as the anchor to the Elimination Chamber to make sure that they sell out the stadium in Australia? That's one. The other one that just came across my radar this afternoon as I got up and around, and I had to look for a couple different sources, but WWE themselves posted a video of Hulk Hogan making a comment and alluding to the fact that he could very well be a participant in the Royal Rumble match this Saturday. And it's not out of the question, because the Royal Rumble is being held at Tropicana Field in St. Petersburg, which is a stone's throw away from Tampa, where he lives. Hogan in the Royal Rumble. What's your thought on that? But your face tells me, but for those who aren't watching this on YouTube, what's your thought on that? Is it clickbait? Dude, I kind of feel like it's clickbait.
I mean, first of all, you could set your watch to Hulk Hogan being full of shit. That man loves to tell tall tales. That definitely sounds like something that WWE would do, though. They love their part-timer pops, which I get. However, bro, isn't Hulk Hogan like 90% artificial limbs at this point? Like, that man's got a new hip, that man's got a new knee, that man's got new elbows, that man's got new eyeballs, that man's got 90% of his ribs replaced, that man's got a new spine, that man's got a new anus. I heard one of his testicles is made out of pure gold.
He's bionic at this point.
Like, dude, if he gets thrown over the top rope, he's gonna fucking shatter like a beer bottle. Is that what we want? I know that we're trying to get headlines, but do we really want Hulk Hogan fucking dies? Hulk Hogan gets thrown out of the ring and he goes kerslash.
Can I tell you this, though?
Shoot.
The thought of Hogan being involved in the Royal Rumble doesn't cause me as much anxiety as anytime I see or hear Ric Flair in public. Because this motherfucker wants to go out and have another Iron Man match. You see what I'm saying? And at 70-something years old, and in the shape that he's in, like, I'm convinced Ric Flair is trying to book his own ending, that he dies in the ring, like legitimately dies in the ring. Why wouldn't that be a thing? But I anytime I hear Ric Flair is, "Oh, I got one more in me." No, bro, stop. Something like the Royal Rumble, though, I feel like could be a more controlled and as chaotic as a battle royal is, and that's what the Royal Rumble is. As chaotic as it is, it's more controlled. You have more guys out there to cushion the blow, so to speak. So it doesn't cause me as much anxiety. Now, the 8-year-old kid in me, dude, if Real American comes over the fucking PA system, I am popping like a fucking 12-year-old girl at a Justin Bieber concert. I don't give a fuck.
Oh, like, I'd agree. Axelmania is running wild, brother.
But just like I saw that, I'm like, man, is this legit or is this just clickbait? And then I saw that WWE reposted his video, and I'm like, all right, you fuckers, you got me. But this is what it's all about, the bait and switch, Tune in to see if Hogan shows up. Well, now at this point, if he don't make some sort of an appearance, I'm pissed off. You see what I'm saying?
I mean, this wouldn't be the first time that's happened. Didn't WWE have like an entire SummerSlam or Survivor Series or something that was like The Rock night, where The Rock did not show up?
Yeah. Yeah.
That sounds like it's not out of the realm of possibility. But I feel like I can very quickly put a bow on my thoughts here with a single statement. If you qualify to start collecting your Social Security payments, you might be too old to be a professional wrestler. That might be a bold statement of mine, but I will stand by it.
Oh man. Do you have any? I don't know. If you're paying attention to what's going on in terms of leading up to Saturday's pay-per-view. Do you have a prediction as to who's going to walk out as the winner of the Royal Rumble?
Having no idea what is going on in the WWE right now, barely knowing what's happening in AEW, but I digress. I will make the same prediction I make every year because I believe that this is the year.
Okay.
We're finally going to see the greatest comeback in wrestling history. We are finally going to see the most underrated man in professional wrestling history get the big one. And at WrestleMania, we're going to see it. New heavyweight champion. Duke the motherfucking Dumpster Drozy. I love Duke the Dumpster Drozy. Calling it now. You're all going to get a hold of me in April like, holy shit, Pope was right.
If Duke the Dumpster Drozy walks down the aisle at Tropicana Field on Saturday, I will grow my hair out.
If Duke the Dumpster Drozy comes out at Tropicana Field on Saturday, I will be hard as diamonds.
All right, well, I'll put you down for Duke the Dumpster Drozy as your...
I mean, genuine guess, just from the last I saw of the product. Would not shock me if Dwayne made a comeback. If it's not Dwayne, then I'm going to guess... I'll give you a top three. Dwayne, Cody, Punk. Those seem the most likely, especially with Seth getting injured and the world title kind of being up in the air. Like it looked like they were building toward Punk Seth at WrestleMania. Well, right. Punk's suddenly free.
Right.
So I could see that happening. I could also see him wrestling. If it ends up being Dwayne Roman, I could see a world where we got a CM Punk Cody Rhodes match for that vacant title.
Interesting. And with your fanfare for AEW, Sean actually talked about this yesterday. What would, as an AEW fan as you are much more dialed in and much more invested in that brand than I am. So let me ask you this. He did some fantasy booking on the show yesterday.
Okay.
So what would your opinion be? Let's say the World Heavyweight Championship is indeed vacated and a new champion is to be crowned at WrestleMania. A lot of speculation right now around the status of MJF. Now, what happens if MJF signs with WWE and at WrestleMania in a triple threat match to crown a new or to fill the vacancy for the World Heavyweight Championship? It's MJF versus Cody Rhodes versus CM Punk. I went on record yesterday and said if that was to happen, if you were to put those three faces above the title at WrestleMania, somebody had better put Tony Khan on career suicide watch, because this motherfucker's head would explode. His three biggest stars just a year ago are now headlining or above the title at the biggest premier event in the industry that is not under his banner. What does that do?
I mean, yeah, that'd be huge for the Fed. That'd be awful for AEW. I can't say that'd be a good move for MJF. AEW, he's the guy.
I said the same thing.
WWE, he's another guy. I don't see MJF getting to... I feel like a lot of why MJF works is how much control he has over his character. I feel like that's why anything works in AEW. The fact that the wrestlers are allowed to book themselves by and large. It's a lot of what doesn't work about them too. However, for a guy like MJF, that has been a net positive. In WWE, where he does not have that same level of freedom, I don't know how well he would excel. You know?
Right.
Like, I don't know. Anytime I think of, like, anyone going to WWE, like, yeah, it could be great. Or he could be Shinsuke Nakamura. Gonna get lost somewhere in the mid-card.
You mentioned Nakamura. That brings up... Look, it was not my intention to dedicate this whole episode to wrestling. So if you want to shift gears and talk about something else,
I'm okay, brother.
But you said Shinsuke Nakamura, and, Nakamura was a huge star in Japan before coming over here and signing with WWE. Well, first it was NXT, then WWE, right? There's a lot of talk right now around Okada, who is regarded as one of the best workers in the entire world. Now, Okada has a working relationship on again, off again with AEW and to some degree TNA. He put it in his notice and made an official announcement that he is not re-signing with New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of speculation is he's just going to come over and sign exclusively with AEW because, like I said, he has a working relationship with them. Now, what I'm reading is Okada does not want to move from Japan. He does not want to set up residency in the United States, which I can understand. But that travel back and forth is going to be, it's going to be difficult at times, I would imagine. But he's also going on record and said that he wants to work WrestleMania at some point. Now, that's not going to happen if he's in AEW. If a guy like Okada was to come over to WWE, obviously setting him up in some sort of program with Nakamura would be a given. But do you see that as could Okada excel under the banner of WWE, given what he's done in New Japan, given what he's done in AEW? Does he have the kind of global reach that would make a huge or a big enough impact to justify coming over to WWE?
My heart wants to say yes, because I am a huge fan of Kazuchika Okada. He is one of those guys who, in my opinion, can do everything you need a professional wrestler to do. And he is one of the best in the world at it. However, traditionally, that has not been enough to succeed in the WWE. So I'm not sure how Okada would do that. Because I thought Shinsuke was a slam dunk future world champion.
Sure.
This is a guy who... everything good you can say about Okada, you can also say about Shinsuke Nakamura. These were two of the four pillars that brought New Japan into the Western eye for probably in its biggest prominence. Because, in the 90s, people were talking way more about All Japan than New Japan.
Right.
So, these two of the four guys that brought New Japan to the levels that it's at over in America now. It's but then again, with Triple H in charge now, Triple H was always really high on Shinsuke.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to imagine that if I'm TKO, I'm looking for the international stars. The WWE is a draw in America. The name WWE alone will sell out a stadium. The name WWE alone is not going to sell out the Tokyo Dome or Arena Mexico or maybe Wembley Stadium. I don't know. AEW was able to do it, so AEW also had huge fucking marquee matches, so it's hard to say. Moral of the story is, if I'm TKO, I'm looking for those people that are going to get me to the next level internationally. Okada is that guy, at least with the Japanese market. But again, it's hard to say because WWE are in such a transitionary state. 5 years ago, that would have been a big fat no.
Mm-hmm.
When Vince McMahon was in charge, that would have been a big fat no. But Vince isn't the guy with the pencil anymore. So it's very hard to say because I don't know what this new WWE is going to look like. If it ends up looking like Golden Era NXT, yeah, Okada could do phenomenally. But I just don't know yet.
Couple great points here. It is a whole new ball game with Triple H calling the shots. Triple H is very much an old school guy. Triple H has his finger on the pulse as what is hot right now, whereas Vince, as much of a supporter that I have been of Vince McMahon, through the good and the bad, like I will find a way to justify his bullshit. There have been a couple of things where I'm like, ooh, not good. Like the porn stash. Bad idea.
Dude, what the fuck was he thinking with that Walt Disney ass mustache?
To
go on another super quick sidebar before I lose the thought.
Mm-hmm.
Another reason why I'm not sure is if Triple H was the guy with the pencil and that's where the buck stopped, I'd have all the confidence in the world in a guy like Okada. But given the current corporate structure, Triple H is not the end-all be-all in the same way that Vince McMahon was. Triple H has people to answer to. And if he does not do as they wish, he could get replaced very easily. So another factor of it is how much is TKO gonna interfere in the day-to-day business? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we're also not sure what that corporate structure is going to look like once it's like solidified. Everything's very liquid right now. We're not sure what the final setting is going to be.
If I'm Ariel Emanuel, who is the head of, forgive me, the head of the table at TKO, if I'm him, I'm taking a step back in this initial year or so of this merger. Let my wrestling people run the wrestling company. Let the UFC people run UFC. And then unless something is catastrophically changing for the worse, I'm sitting back and I'm letting my people run their respective products. Then I look at the numbers. Let Triple H run WWE in the way that he knows it's supposed to be run. Because you get a corporate suit in there that doesn't have any appreciation or doesn't know anything about the wrestling business, I promise you within 8 months, they will drive that motherfucker right into the ground. That was my concern.
I could not agree with you anymore. That is common sense. However, to circle things back to our first big wrestling topic of today. Corporations lately have not exactly been following common sense.
True.
So, hopefully, in a dream world, what you have just described is what is going to happen. That is if the corporate suits decide not to stick their fingers in the pie before it's done settling. and I just don't have that kind of trust in me.
Can't blame me either. The track record speaks for itself. There is an underlying level of damage control that has to be taken into consideration, especially when there's just so much happening that is shaking up the entire industry.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and the reason why it's so on everybody's radar is because, well, you're dealing with the industry leader right now. So obviously everybody is paying attention to what's going on. Because, what's happening behind the scenes and how it's resonating with what we're seeing on the screen. All the other promoters, all the other promotions are kind of sitting back and watching because, you follow the leader, for the lack of a better term. A lot of them do. AEW is trying to do things differently, and I can appreciate them for that. But when you're looking at TNA and you're looking at the NWA and MLW, these are three promotions that have vested interest, and they have a track record, and they have some degree of backing at their disposal. Certainly not on the level of $1 billion umbrella that WWE has, or AEW for that matter. But they're sitting back and watching as to how, what does this business model look like as we're shifting from your traditional television capabilities over to the streaming apps. And I said a year and a half ago, within 10 years, there won't be cable television, not like we know it now. And because everything is moving towards the streaming apps and the platforms and things of this nature. The NFL has toyed with it this year, having games exclusively on Amazon Prime or Peacock. And there were a contingent of football fans who are like, well, you just lost me. I'm not buying an Amazon membership to watch one game until their team starts doing good and they're the only ones broadcasting their shit. You are going to buy that subscription so that you can watch them. That's got my 70-something-year-old father pissed right the fuck off, because he doesn't want to have to buy a subscription to a streaming service that he's not going to use except for a 3-hour block of time one day out of the week. But this is where we're going. And I told him that, hey, if you want to watch the NFL, this is you're going to have to get used to this. This is where everything is trending towards. There is an NFL network. Well, it's just a matter of time before it gets taken off your cable system and it starts to become a standalone streaming service. That's where we're heading, unfortunately.
I would very much agree with that. And I'll take it a step further even and make a bold prediction.
Ooh, I like bold.
So I firmly believe that we are heading toward basically just a revamped version of cable, where all of this shit's going to get packaged together eventually. All of these talking heads with the business suits are going to realize how much money could be made by packaging all of their shit together and divvying up the spoils. Kind of like has been done with cable before, only now they're the ones wielding the power. They don't need that third party to go through, in this case, like the cable companies. Like probably give or take a decade ago, there was a service out there called Verve. Mm-hmm. And Verve essentially was what I am just describing, only it was with a bunch of smaller streaming services, a lot of which have since been bought out by bigger streaming services, major media companies, which is why, to the best of my knowledge, Verve isn't really a thing anymore. But, at a time they had like Crunchyroll, and they had Shudder, and they had those were the only two I ever used, but they had, like, at one time, like, the Rooster Teeth streaming service was through them. They had, like, almost a dozen streaming services that you could get for one monthly price. which was significantly fucking cheaper than all the individual streaming services.
Sure.
I do not believe that the price is going to be as generous as Verb's was. Might be a chance that Verb would still be a bigger thing if they'd been a little less generous with their pricing, but I get it. But that's what I think we're building toward. Now, at least with like these instances where one company, like Disney, own like 3 or 4 streaming services right now. They already offer like a package deal where you can get Hulu and Disney Plus and
ESPN.
ESPN. It's only going to be a matter of time until we see that idea evolve until it's what we were used to 10 years ago, just on our computer instead.
Right.
That's where I think the future is going, because that's about the worst possible outcome I could think of.
I'm with you on that. It's good, but that's technology, man. That's just where everything just keeps evolving. You can either evolve with it or you get left behind and you're playing catch up for seemingly forever.
Exactly. Not many people still using the fucking abacus.
So it's going to be interesting, especially on the wrestling front, to see, because wrestling has always been kind of on the cutting edge of things like this. They're almost like the guinea pig. If it works, great. If it don't, well, it's just wrestling. Well,
if you want to see what direction technology in the entertainment industry is going, look at professional wrestling and pornography. They are always on the cutting edge of whatever is new. By and large.
Yeah. I don't have, I couldn't tell you about the pornography side of things, but the wrestling part for sure.
No, I mean, like, in much the same way that, wrestling was always, like, trying things out first. Yeah, porn did the exact same thing. Like, porn's the reason why we went with VHS instead of Betamax. Porn's the reason that we went with Blu-ray instead of DVD-R. Because that's where the porn industry went. They leaned toward that, so went toward that. Wrestling kept an eye on it and went, okay, well, porn's doing it. We gotta jump on that now. Or at least I assume that's what's happening. Otherwise, how the fuck would WWE always be on the winning side of the cutting edge?
Wherever their inspiration comes, it clearly is working for them.
I can think of a few places where the inspiration comes. Oink!
Oh, man. As we're coming up on the hour here, Pope, is there anything else that has come across your radar that you want to dive into this week?
Oh, it's actually been a very relaxing week where I haven't had to do a lot of thinking. Just been working on my little projects. It's been lovely. Most of my time's been preparing for this big supernatural style live stream that we're doing for the superhero podcast. Super excited about that. I'm being given the pencil on it. It's gonna be silly. It's gonna be goofy. And if the players screw up, it's going to end with pants-shitting terror. What more could you ask for? Nothing.
I mean, everything's all right there in a nice, neat little package. Love that for you, man. Because when you just said that, you just lit right up, and that's how you know that you are invested in something, because you can't fake that shit. You legitimately lit right up when you started talking about that, and knowing that you have that kind of thing going for you, that you have that look forward to. My heart is happy for you, because in a day and age where everybody's like down in the dumps and everything is bad and there's so much negativity, to see somebody so invested in what they're doing or a project that they're working on to the point to where they legitimately light up like that, that's what it's all about. It's moments like that. So I love the fact that you have that going for you. But very cool.
Very excited. There are so many big things in the works with the show where I am being given the creative director's chair, so to speak. And it's just super fucking exciting. I've been slowly yet surely working out a lot of the kinks for some of the shit that I'm going to be getting to do here soon. I think I'm finally at a point where I'm prepared to tackle a lot of this. I apologize for how vague I'm being, everyone. I fucking hate it when people are like, oh, big things coming, and they can't really elaborate, but big things coming. Wish I could elaborate.
All in due time.
Exactly. Something exciting I can elaborate on is got a new album coming soon.
Very cool.
Yeah. Excited about this one.
Do you have a drop date for that?
So right now I have a single which is processing right now. I'm hoping that will be out before the end of the month. I'm basically waiting to submit the rest of the album until that single's out. Like the day that's out, I'm gonna get the rest of it going. Hopefully the whole thing, titled Always Forward, should be out like first week or two of February, tentatively.
Oh damn, come on.
Yeah. Fingers crossed, man. Like, since it's just a single that I'm releasing, I'm hoping that's not going to take too long. Like, album might take you about a month. They've got way more songs to go through. You know, make sure that your copyrights are figured out, your T's are crossed, your I's are dotted.
Right.
T's are crossed. Yep, that's a word now. We're sticking with it.
That might be a new T-shirt over at our online store. You never know. You never know.
Potato Pals, parentheses, the Pope Can't Talk store.
Oh, fantastic.
Oh, dude, the title of the single that's coming out came from that. I tried to say that something took the breath out of my lungs. What came out was it took the lungs out of my breath.
Oh.
So I decided, fuck it, let's use that for a song title. You Take the Lungs Out of My Breath, coming fucking soon.
Well, we are going to keep an ear out for that for sure, because now you have piqued my interest. I need to know what that sounds like. So, very cool. Very much looking forward to your new project that's going to drop here, with the album and, your other goings on. Very excited for you. Very much looking forward to that. And, of course, you send us the link, we'll share it within the network here so we can get as many eyes and ears on your stuff as we possibly can. Speaking of eyes and ears, as we put a bow on this episode, let me go ahead and run down the gambit for you real quick for what you can expect here on the PFC Entertainment Network. Later tonight, live on ONTV, the Clouse and Q Show. You can see that beginning at 6 p.m. at facebook.com/Orion ONTV. Tomorrow, you will get a new episode of The Real Podcast with Amy Sheridan, which I'm going to record here in, about 20 minutes or so. So it's a busy day here around my office, but I'm here for it.
I see you needed a palate cleanser after me.
That's just the way it worked out, pal. It's just the way the schedule worked out.
No, dude, it's fine. I made so many dick jokes last week. I understand setting something up afterward this week.
Amy records every other week, and it primarily is on Thursday. Now, generally, we would record our show, a little bit sooner than we did, but my schedule got a little bit crazy, personally speaking, but be that as it may. Sunday, you're going to get the latest episode of Shh, We Don't Talk About That. Monday, you get Say What. Tuesday is the flagship show. Wednesday is Power Tripping Through the 80s. And then Thursday is the Hot Tag. So a little bit of something for everybody here on the PFC Entertainment Network. And check out our online store, cafepress.com/PFC Network, the official online store of all the great podcasts here on the Pure Fury Creations Entertainment Network. And with that, go out this week, be awesome to yourselves and to each other. For the incomparable Pope Brandon Brownson, I'm Jason Clouse. We'll see you next week here on the Potato Pals Perspective on the PFC Entertainment Network.
Sweet mother of God, I've had to pee for 45 minutes.